Welcome to Abridged, a podcast on everything Bracebridge, with your host, me, Mayor Rick Maloney. Well, I'm joined with a familiar guest to Abridged, Deputy Chief Mike Peake. Mike, welcome to this podcast again. Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
It's always kind of a tenuous time in the spring in Muskoka with the spring melt, and maybe tell us a little bit about where we're at today in terms of the spring freshet, and what is kind of the outlook as we take this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think things right now are again trending to the good. So I usually track the data, like some hydrometric data from the province, and I track it from the Big East River all the way through to Bala Falls, because that's our area, and we're going to be affected by what runs out of Algonquin Park typically. So I usually track the data, and the data looks great. I mean, obviously, things can change very quickly. It really depends on what Mother Nature's going to throw at us. If we get some warmer weather, a lot of rain, that might affect it a little bit more. But as of right now, we look pretty good.
So you're in your capacity as fire chief or deputy fire chief, I should say. You're also the emergency management coordinator for the town, and you and other emergency management coordinators get together. Tell us a little bit about what that means and what you're doing right now to kind of monitor the spring.
Yeah, so the great thing is we do have what's called MERC, and it's the Muskoka Emergency Response Committee. And, through that, we get to see from other areas within Muskoka kind of what's happening. So, the great part is, to the north of us, we have Huntsville, and they're affected primarily and historically, they're affected earlier, about a week before us. So, it's great to have that as a resource that, when they see elevated waters, that they notify us. And then we also have an agreement through Muskoka that, if somebody's affected, that we can respond to help them as well. So it's great having that mutual aid partnership.
And then in your role and capacity as kind of the coordinator for Bracebridge, you're sharing information to, various departments and stakeholders, internally, I'm sure Public Works and others, but to tell us a little bit about, how we as a town kind of prepare for, whatever may be coming down the road.
Yeah, being prepared, obviously, everyone should be prepared, not just, the municipality, but also every person within the municipality should be prepared as well. But from our side of things, from a community emergency manager, what we do is we prepare broadly first. So, well, not first, but we prepare with the other municipalities in Muskoka, not just them, but also the OPP, things like that. So, depending on the situation, depending on the emergency, it's always good to have those resources. And we don't want to create those resources or those relationships late. We want to create those relationships early so that when something happens, we're ready. So we create those relationships with OPP, with paramedics, with all the other services and the municipalities, create those mutual aids so that we're able to respond to each other's emergencies if we need to, and support, obviously. But we prepare ourselves, in Bracebridge, we're preparing ourselves for any type of emergency. We have a list of historical data that we continue to look at and refine every year. So, we prepare off of those. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, we're seeing weather events that are becoming more and more prominent. We're seeing elevated waters, which, we've seen historically here. But we prepare the best way we can in our municipality and then broadly in the Muskoka area.
So, obviously, there's lots of tasks, and your role as kind of coordinator to make sure those tasks are done. It's communications. It's on the Public Works side, making sure that we have those kind of standing contracts in place for those services and resources that we might need. from a corporate services, the finance side and things like that. So really, you're kind of the team quarterback in many respects as the coordinator, so that when something does happen, we have that kind of progressive response to the incident.
Absolutely. Yeah, the CEMC is the basically, like you said, the quarterback of the team, but the team is massive, and it includes a number of people within the municipality. It's not just the CEMC's responsibility; it's the municipality's responsibility, which in turn, most of the people within the municipality have a role to play when an emergency happens. So not only do we have to deal with an emergency situation, but we also have to keep business continuity going. So, it's a fine line, but it seems to work. We're prepared. We do training every year, as you know, as a group. So, we do our due diligence to make sure that we're prepared as a municipality and as the people who run the municipality.
Yeah, and just in my capacity as mayor, when we do these exercises, and even when we've had events in the last year and a half or so, whether it was the snow event of 2024 in the late November, December, or the ice storm a year ago, from my perspective, it's all about having all of the accurate information and the input from all of those various stakeholders when it comes to decision making. Because at the end of the day, the advice that's provided through that emergency control group helps the mayor make that decision on whether to declare an emergency or not, or where we're at, and it's actually such a coordinated effort, right? And the training, as you pointed out, annually we do tabletop exercises and working through a scenario, which really kind of fine tunes it.
Yeah. We're every year when we do our tabletop exercise, I'm blown away at the resilience of the municipality and the staff. We do training once a year, but we try to do a little bit more every year. We don't want to wait until the moment we're in an emergency before we figure out what we're doing. We want to be proactive, not reactive, and it's important. And the municipal employees, like anybody who's part of the EOC, they're great at what they do, and they're well trained. And that's kind of my responsibility, is making sure that the people within the municipality know their roles, know what to do in an emergency, and we seem to be doing a great job at it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that comes to mind is that even in their specific roles, during an emergency, you actually have to have your own personal kind of emergency response plan, because you could be called to that emergency control group and be involved with that. It could be an extended period of time where your family, whether it's your partner or whomever, has to pick up the slack as well, right? And we saw that with the ice storm, particularly with our volunteers who were out there doing wellness checks. At the same time, their own families may have been struggling without power.
Yeah, that's right. We've got such a broad area that's rural. So, we try to prepare everybody and let them know, like members of the community, let them know that, if you are in that rural area, we're not really looking at a 72-hour kit now, because there are prolonged power outages that you may require something more, like a generator backup. As well as anybody, but it's such a huge thing to have an emergency, and the more prepared that we can be, the better we're going to be in the end.
Well, it's a good segue into what I also wanted to chat about, is how can I, as a individual homeowner and a resident of Bracebridge, how can I make sure that I'm prepared for the kind of unexpected or the expected?
Yeah, exactly. And we, and the good thing is we have subscriptions to the town media releases, which is great. And I think people should subscribe to those, because that's early notice. So we know from community emergency management side of things, we get notified from the Environment Canada, and we have meetings with them early on. So having those subscriptions are great. As a resident within Bracebridge, I think it's important we plan as a municipality, and it's important for residents to plan as well. And I think planning involves a lot of different things. So planning for your pets, planning for your children, planning for yourself, having that 72-hour kit, which is now we call it an emergency preparedness kit, because it could be potential for more than 72 hours. So just being prepared, having some documents prepared as well in a go bag, having some water, some non-perishable items, maybe a wind-up radio, toiletries, things like that, so that you're prepared if something happens and you have to leave in a hurry.
And if someone is interested in making sure that they're doing their kind of personal checklist, what kind of resources would be available to them to kind of go through that?
Yeah, so, we've got, like I was saying, we have great staff at the town of Bracebridge, and one of them has put together part of the town of Bracebridge website, has everything to do with emergency preparedness. So it's how to prepare prior to an emergency, how to mitigate during an emergency, and what to do after an emergency. But I can't stress enough being prepared as a homeowner for yourself, making sure that if you do live on a waterway, to make sure that there's no potential that you're going to get flooded. Looking at the lay of the land, making sure that you're preparing for the worst.
And one of the heartwarming, but also really kind of community things that I saw in the ice storm was, people watching out for their neighbors, for their friends, their family. Maybe speak a little bit about that and what you've experienced in terms of people coming together and helping out.
Yeah, I get blown away. I mean, I'm part of the emergency services, so from the fire standpoint, we have just such a great community, and they always come out when we're on an emergency scene. But from the emergency management point of things, we get calls constantly during an emergency. People who want to help, people who will dig people out of their homes, people who will plow into people's driveways, people who will shovel off roofs. And that's from a CEMC standpoint. Those are things that we have to navigate as well from the EOC. But, it's amazing the outpouring that we get during an emergency, and just what a great community that we live in.
Yeah, and I think one of the messages back last spring was, if you know that you have a neighbor who might be vulnerable, check on your neighbor, knock on their door, see how they're making out. And my experience has been that we are, as you said earlier, a very resilient community. We, have experienced these events, and as you pointed out, they're way more prolonged than 72 hours. I think I was out of power for almost 14 days, if not 14 days, during the ice storm. And so, that's well past 3 days of not having services like that. So you have to be, understand how you're going to navigate that. But also there's a lot of folks that are living in our rural area that, have vulnerabilities. And so it's really about neighbor checking on neighbor too, eh?
Yeah, and you find out really quickly during an emergency that those relationships have already happened. We'll go to do wellness checks, and we'll knock on a door, and we'll ask if the neighbor's home. That's one of our questions. And, they've already checked on their neighbor. It could be an elderly couple. They're supporting, so they're making their way into town however they can. They're getting supplies for the neighbors who are unable to. So, yeah, it's great. It's great to see. It's great to hear. It's great to witness, especially during an emergency.
So if we're looking at the spring of 2026, things can change in a microsecond in terms of conditions. But right now we're kind of trending on the positive. But people should make sure that they're keeping themselves informed. So if you were to suggest a place to get the best information, how should someone keep themselves kind of updated on on where things are at any given point?
So the same thing. I mean, we track weather, we track the levels in the waterways, but they can always subscribe to the town of Bracebridge, their news releases, because those are the most important, and those are the ones that we utilize. So when we're putting out, a significant weather event that's coming, that's going to come out in a media release, and you can get that fairly quickly on. Another great avenue is Voyant Alert. So download the Voyant Alert. Make sure that you open it at least once a month, or it'll go to sleep. But then anything that comes out, you're going to get an immediate alert, especially in the area that you're in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's hope that we go through a spring that's reasonably normal. And if it's not, it's absolutely, confident building to know that we have yourself, other team members that are there and well prepared to respond to any emergency that comes our way. So, Mike, wanted to thank you for slipping in today and give us a bit of an update. And let's hope that we don't have to invoke our emergency control group this spring. And thank you and your fellow firefighters and the whole team for all the work you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pleasure. And honestly, like I said, being prepared makes it easy when the time comes.
Appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you.
Well, I am joined by a recurring guest, Jonathan Taylor, who's the fire prevention officer for the town of Bracebridge Fire Department. Jonathan, great to have you on Abridged again.
It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you very much.
It's the end of March, moving into April, but we're going to talk about wildfires and wildfire season, which is coming up in April. Tell us a little bit about what happens April 1st, officially move into wildfire season, and a little bit about what you can and can't do during that designated period of time.
Absolutely. So April 1st is what we classify as wildfire season, and that's when our burning control bylaw kind of comes into effect. So after April 1st, there's no daytime burning allowed anymore. So between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., we can't burn outside. It's April is a changing month, right? The snow is going away, things are dry, there's grasses and fuels on the ground that have been covered up all winter long that are more volatile. So the MNRF, Ministry of Natural Resources, is really on top of that kind of stuff, and they say April is kind of when it starts getting dangerous. So we reflect that, and as of April 1st, we put into effect our burning control bylaw, which allows us to ensure the safety of our residents here in Bracebridge.
And how long is that kind of in effect till when?
So the wildfire season is in effect from April 1st to October 31st.
Okay. And, you mentioned no daytime burning. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, what's the difference between no daytime burning, but I can burn in the evening? And you pointed out that a lot of the information that helps in those decisions are, information provided from MNRF and, kind of the weather and things like that. So maybe share a little bit about the distinction between daytime versus nighttime burning.
Absolutely. So during the night, there's more humidity, there's more dew on the ground, temperatures are generally lower, and fire activity in general is slower at night, right? So, if it's really hot outside, there's a little bit of wind, fuels, grasses, twigs, leaves, sticks, all that kind of stuff is drier. Fires burn faster, more intense, versus at night, everything's a little bit slower, the air isn't quite as thick. The humidity's up, there's dew, there's not as much wind, fire generally burns slower at night. So that's one of the factors. And going back to just the weather in general, the MNRR breaks down a day into a 24-hour burning period, and they say the peak time is from mid-morning to about sundown. That's when, the sun is at its highest point, it's the hottest outside, the humidity is virtually gone, the relative humidity is quite low. So they use a system and they decide what the fire weather index is for the day. And if it's high, that it's looking like a bad day for us, right? So there's so many variables that come into play from, when the sun comes up to the sun goes down, that creates a more dangerous and volatile situation that it's simpler to just not burn during the day and only burn at night.
Okay. Well, that appreciate that, because it is a question that gets asked on a regular basis, and that is absolutely important kind of rationale, and that really you're kind of seeing the daytime as that more riskier, challenging time for fire and the spread of fire versus the evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people ask that question, the temperature's the same during the day as it is at night, but it's not just temperature. It's not that we don't want you to enjoy a campfire during the day. It's just that it's much trickier, and, fire is more intense during the day than it is at night. So
that wildfire season and those respective bylaws come into place April 1, and they go through till through October. So that's a little bit different than the fire bans that we've seen come in place throughout the year, and maybe tell us a little bit about that process in determining that we're going to move into a fire ban, full ban, versus the kind of regulations and rules we have around wildfire season.
Yep. So the fire bylaw, or the outdoor burning bylaw, tells us what we can and can't do, right? So no fires during the day, 8 to 6 p.m. It tells us what size fires we can have after hours, right? 2x2, it has to be 20 feet away from structures, all that kind of stuff. But when we go into a fire ban, it's because we're seeing those increased fuels on the ground. It's tinder dry outside. The weather isn't really in our favor. So we again take data from the MNRF. They're the ones that have the multiple monitoring weather stations and all that kind of stuff, right? They provide us with data every day. They can tell us whether it's going to be 24 hours that's really bad, 72 hours that's potentially going to be bad. So the Muskoka area fire chiefs, that's Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, Muskoka Lakes, Huntsville, Lake of Bays, they all get together and they make the decision based on the information that's provided to them, right? So if they see that the weather over the weekend is going to be, unfavorable to wildfires, they might decide that we're going into a fire ban prior to the weekend. And again, it's not that we don't want people to come up to their cottages and enjoy a campfire and that kind of stuff, right? It's simply just we don't want to have that big, fire that escalates from a little campfire to a multi-day incident where it's, us that's out there. It's our partners in Gravenhurst or Huntsville, Lake of Bays coming to help us. It's the MNRF aviation crews or ground crews that are coming to help us. We're really just trying to mitigate a situation ahead of time before the fire actually happens. So, the Muskoka area fire chiefs get together, they use that information, they use, past data, they use past events, and they come up with the determination that they're going to place a fire ban into effect until X amount of date, right?
So when that decision is made, one of the more obvious ways that it's communicated are those roadside signs. I think throughout the municipality there might be 9 or 10 of those strategically placed around Bracebridge and area. And on a sidebar, who's the person that gets to change that little indicator on those signs? Is that you?
It's me. It's, Brad Jackson, our fire inspection and compliance officer. It's Jesse Lockyer, our training officer. It's Deputy Chief Peake, who you recently spoke to. It's, Fire Chief Kevin Plested. We all do it.
Okay.
So it's kind of funny that when the fire chiefs know that we're going to go into a fire ban, we generally know about the night before. So we all sit down and we figure out a strategic plan on how we're going to do this, right? So for me, I come in from one area, I can change one sign. Brad comes in from another area, he can change one sign. So we definitely make it work. We make sure all the signs get changed as soon as we possibly can during the day.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is just one person going from sign to sign to sign to sign, and really it could take like 3 or 4 hours by the time you drive all the way across Bracebridge to get there.
I'm sure. A burning question that people have, I guess, who changes the sign, and thanks for answering that. But I guess more importantly, the sign is, one physical thing that you see if you're driving or in your neighborhood. But what are other ways that are that it's communicated on whether we're in a fire ban or not?
So there's obviously the roadside signs. We pop the bottom piece off that says no daytime burning. We put the burning ban sign on the bottom. We also have some smaller signs that they're kind of like lawn signs, right? So we can put them in strategic areas, fence posts, telephone poles, the areas that a lot of people frequently visit, whether it's boat launches, they're going to the boat launch, they're launching their boat, they're going across their cottage for the weekend. We'll put a fire ban sign there, so hopefully they'll see it. We also use multiple different ways. Our social medias, Town of Bracebridge social medias, it's on our Bracebridge Fire page, Facebook, Twitter, all sorts of methods that we can use. And quite honestly, the most common way that we get that information out is because people call. People will call and they'll say, hey, we're coming up to the cottage for the weekend. We understand it's really dry. We know that you were in high. Or is there a possibility we're going into a fire ban? And a lot of the times the answer is, well, if you had called yesterday, we were in high, but today we are unfortunately in a fire ban, right? So there is definitely some disappointment, but a lot of people understand why we go into fire bans and why we're trying to protect our wildlife and our wildlands.
Yeah, and I think you don't have to go too far into back into the news cycle to see communities that were just devastated by wildfires. Some caused naturally, some by human error or whatever it might be. But it can be devastating to communities in terms of the impacts of a wildfire.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily just communities. It could be just one subdivision in Bracebridge would be absolutely devastating to us, and we would be relying on our outside partners, Gravenhurst, Huntsville, Lake Bays, the local fire departments, the M&R, Salvation Army. We would really be relying on them to assist us with that. But it's still very devastating to that one portion of our community, right? And we live in Bracebridge. Excuse me. We live in Bracebridge. We live in Muskoka, where our terrain changes so fast. We got nice lush forests here in Bracebridge, where if we go just a little bit west of us to Muskoka Lakes, there's forest, but there's also a lot of rock. There's also a lot of low-lying shrub and all that kind of stuff, where it changes so frequently that the fire behavior, the way that the fire burns, the intensity would change so much as well. So it might not just be Bracebridge. It could be our other local municipalities that get affected by a fire that starts in Bracebridge as well.
We talked a lot, Jonathan, about fires and fire bans. What can I do as a property owner to protect my property or make my property more resilient to the potential of wildfire in around my property?
So we use a program called Fire Smart Canada. We do have a lot of pamphlets and a lot of information at the fire hall. Anytime that we go out to different events, we generally take this information. Even if it's the middle of winter, the middle of January, we take this information out with us because it's something that happens, every year. So essentially what Fire Smart Canada is they break down your property into 3 different sections. The intermediate, and I might say the terminology wrong here, the intermediate, close to your home, and then a little bit further away, right? So, it breaks down what you should be doing right against your house. And I think it's from 0 to 10 feet, what you should be doing to clean out that area, pull all the leaves away, sticks, twigs, brush, clean out your gutters, right? Clean the pine needles that stick on your roof. That's your first step. You're protecting your home close, and then it'll go back to 10 meters or 10 feet to 25 meters or feet, what you should do in that area, and then keep on going. So it really helps you protect your home and your property by removing those fuels, right? A lot of the times we get questions, well, can I get a sprinkler system for my home? You could. It's going to be very costly. The M&R, they use sprinklers quite often. Our neighbors down in Gravenhurst have a sprinkler unit where it's a protection unit for them to use on houses. It's a great way to protect your home. But the easiest, most cost-efficient way is just removing those fuels from your home, right? You want to get those fuels as far away as you can to kind of stop that spread of fire. If it's in the bush, okay. As soon as it starts encroaching and getting closer and closer to your home, and there's all those fine fuels, that's when that kind of becomes more of a problem for your home and your property.
So I'm sure that good if you do live in the rural area and you have some bush property, good forest management things as well. Cleaning out dead wood and things like that as well is important.
Yep. I mean, anytime that you can do anything out in the bush to remove those fuels, we're not asking you to take down live trees and stuff like that. No. But just like you said, the dead live wood, the stuff that's laying on the ground, anytime that you can clean that up and remove those fuels from our forest floors, from your property, it's always going to help keep your property and your home protected. And
there's an abundance of that from the ice storm of 2025. A lot of limbs, trees came down, and that's turning itself into fuel sources as well.
Yeah. So it's been just over a year now since the ice storm kind of happened, right? So all that debris, those twigs, those sticks, those branches, the trees that came down are all now starting to dry out and get to kind of that volatile state where they are a very concerning fuel on our forest floors. You can you can drive out Highway 118 a little bit, and you can still see piles of brush that's been cleaned up, but it's been left on the the side of somebody's property or the side of the road or the ditch, where it is a concern. There is a lot of fuels on our forest floors right now that could be quite concerning for this wildfire season.
If I wanted to access some more information, more resources, where would I go?
You can go to bracebridge.ca on the fire prevention page there. I believe there's quite a bit of information. You can also contact anybody at the fire department. We can get that information out to you, or just stop by for a chat, and we can get the pamphlets to you right away. We also are out in the community quite often during the summertime, so if you ever see us, stop us, have a conversation. We usually have some information with us that we can hand out at that time.
Speaking about chats, I understand the fire department's doing some community little coffee meetings. One of them today, this date, and some others around the community. Another way to kind of connect with the fire department, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we try and get out as much as we can, right? So I like coffee. I'm sure you like coffee too. So we decided, what a great idea to have coffee with a firefighter. We've teamed up with some of our local businesses and restaurants where we can go in for a couple hours, bring some of that, fire safety information ranging from smoke and carbon monoxide alarms to the MNRF has actually joined us today at Tim Hortons to talk about wildfires and the Fire Smart Canada program and whatnot. So it's just a great opportunity to talk anything fire prevention, emergency management, even training. If somebody wants to become a firefighter with Bracebridge Fire, right, it gives anyone an opportunity to come and have a coffee and chat with us. So,
Jonathan, as always, appreciate you taking the time to come in and chat. Look forward to future opportunities. I know that you've been very busy in your capacity as our fire prevention officer, and I wanted to thank you and all your other firefighters for all the great work you do in protecting our community. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
That's a wrap on this episode of Abridged. Thanks to my guests for taking the time to join me today. This podcast was produced in the Dr. Ted Joe recording studio at the Colson Family Bracebridge Library. Thanks for listening. And be sure to join me on our next episode where we talk everything Bracebridge.
This podcast was produced by North Star Networks, the guiding light for progressive media.